Power, Nigeria, of course, largest economy and most populous country in sub-Saharan Africa, but limitations in the power sector constrain growth. Nigeria, endowed with large oil, gas, hydro, and solar resources, also has the potential to generate about 12,000 plus megawatts of electric power from existing plants. On most days, however, only able to dispatch about 4,000 of that, which is insufficient for a country of over 190 million or 200 million, depending on who you ask. Just about 60% of Nigeria's population has access to electricity, with an estimated 34% electrification rates in rural areas. Joining us to discuss this very hot topic is Mr. Ajibola Akindele, who is the General Manager, Process Automation, Sub-Saharan Africa at Schneider Electric. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. Good morning to you. What is your overall view of the power sector, seen as you're an insider?
I think you've summarized it. You've done half of my job, right? I mean, the headline figures are just not good enough. I don't think there's any Nigerian that is excited about what is going on in the power sector. Generation at installed capacity of 12,000 megawatts, transmission capacity of about 8,000 megawatts, distribution, and on a very good day, just 5,000 megawatts gets to the people.
Right.
And when you look at it that we have 200 million people, that's just abysmal. Now, we don't need to compare ourselves to the Western nations, to China. Let's even look at countries that are similar to us in Africa.
Yes.
Countries like South Africa, countries like Ghana. If you benchmark what we're doing to South Africa, with a population of just 55 million people, generates about 58,000. That is 10 times Nigeria. Ghana, with a population of just 30 million people, generate 4,000. That's as much as Nigeria. So, the sector just isn't doing well enough, right? And the question you ask yourself is, how do you become an industrialized nation when you don't have any power? A lot of wastage goes on running generators. And I mean, I was reading an article on Business Day just last week, where it was estimated that Lagos State alone spend 5.2 trillion naira generating 15,000 megawatts of electricity. So,
gosh.
And that's at twice the price you would get if you were generating it from the grid. So, there's just a lot that needs to be done. And I don't think anybody is excited about that. We just need to sit down and fix the sector so that we can increase our GDP, increase growth, and actually create jobs. Because what is going on in the power sector is directly tied to job creation,
Indeed,
to security, and several other socioeconomic factors.
And thank you so much for that. Okay, we were, myself included, a lot of people were excited about the privatization exercise that took place in the power sector. Haven't really seen the dividends from that since then. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I was also very excited, to be honest. We thought that things were going to change.
Right.
But you see, if you look back for about the last 30 years, between 1989, right, and 2007, 2008, when we had the NIPP projects, there was no major investment in the power sector. It was just about stabilizing what we had.
Right.
It was, the old NEPA or PHCN, whatever you want to call it. There wasn't any real investment. The infrastructure is old. Some of the substations are 30, 40 years, 50 years old, by the way.
Wow.
And you've seen a lot of urbanization. You've seen a lot of population increase. And now the load on that infrastructure just cannot, the infrastructure cannot withstand the load on it. So you're seeing breakdowns here and there. So the biggest challenge has been underinvestment in that sector. But I think more importantly as well, as a nation, sometimes we just don't live up to things that we've committed to. Now, if you look at the assumptions around the privatization and the deadlines and the timelines, they all made a lot of sense, and that's what got us excited. But the follow-through has always been the problem. Nobody is really sitting down to say, okay, we said in 2013, this was where we'll be in 15, 19, 21, 25. We're just not following up. So it's a combination of underinvestment over many years, but also the lack of follow-up and the will to actually see things get done. I think those are some of the major challenges that we've seen.
Okay, so I've got a multi-headed question here, three-headed dragon, if you will. How much investment do you think is needed in the sector? Where is the money going to come from? And what could we have done differently, I guess? Yes, if you want to take those.
So let me look at the first one is how much is, so several estimates have been done in the past.
Yeah.
But the general consensus is that we need between 3 to 5 billion annually.
Gosh.
Annually to invest in that sector.
Dollars or naira?
Dollars.
Okay.
$3 to $5 billion annually over the next 15 years for us to have a semblance of industrialization. And That's a lot of money.
It is.
Now, where is it going to come from? From everywhere. It's going to come from government, it's going to come from the private sector, and it's also going to come from international development agencies.
Okay.
It has to be a combination of all of that. Now, government alone can't do it. By the way, we've privatized. So
Right,
government
exactly.
shouldn't be investing a lot.
Yeah.
But government still has a role because government owns TCN.
Right.
Now, on the private sector side, think about what I said, 5.2 trillion. This is mainly coming from the private sector. I'm sure the private sector will be willing to invest half of that money into the power sector one way or the other,
Right.
so that they can buy electricity at a much cheaper rate. And the international agencies are also there to support us in terms of either providing loans, guarantees, partial risk guarantees and the likes, just to make it more conducive, for investors to bring their money. In terms of what we could have done differently, we could have done a lot of things differently.
Okay.
But I would rather say, what should we do now?
Right.
Because the past is the past. Let's look ahead to the future. Okay. What can we do now?
Right.
So, as a nation, it's really about planning. It's about really focusing on what do we want to achieve over the next 10 years. I'll tell you something going on, and you probably already know it. A lot of the IOCs, or international oil companies, are becoming energy companies. So what they are committing to is investing in power.
Right.
In the next 10 to 20 years. Some have said up to a third of their revenue has to come from power.
Okay.
So a lot of investments are going to go into that sector globally. How do we position Nigeria as a favorite investment destination for all that investment? Those are the things we need to be thinking about. How do we diversify our energy mix? Currently what we have is power is generated from a section of the country and then it's transmitted to everywhere else, more or less. Now, in the process, a lot of it is lost through what we call transmission losses. Now, how do we begin to decentralize the grid so that there is generation closer to the end users?
I like where you're going. Keep going, sir.
So generation is closer to the end users,
yes.
and we reduce losses. And it's easier. It's easier to manage, and the investments are not necessarily that huge per se. So we need to create the necessary framework. Our policies have to make sense, and we need to start looking at decentralizing the grid, creating private sector investments, embedded generation, mini grids, captive power, and obviously the use of renewables. But I think the most important thing, again, I have to say, is creating that right enabling environment. Right. So that the private sector are comfortable investing. You see, in the power sector, we're not trading here. The payback period is somewhere between 10 to 25 years.
Gosh, that's a long time.
When you're telling someone to bring his investment for up to 20 years and to wait for 20 years, you have to give them a lot of comfort.
Right.
So there is a number of socioeconomic issues that still need to be resolved as well. Issues around FX, stability of the currency. So it's a lot of work that needs to be done. Unfortunately, it's not 1, 2, 3 things, and then it gets fixed. A lot of planning has to be done, and a lot of commitment, to actually seeing things getting done and getting us through.
Great stuff. Just said in another way, decentralization of the grid, and the government has put out some language to that effect.
Yeah,
unbundling TCN. Is that? Is that where we're going? It's
a very tricky question. The truth is this, everything has got to be on the table.
Okay.
Now, I'll tell you some of the ideas that have been floated in the past. Some have said that is the right way to go. Some have said, why don't we even break it into halves? Or unbundle a section of it and then use the proceeds to invest in the other areas. So maybe, I don't know, I won't say a particular region, but maybe the most profitable region can be spun off, so to speak, and then use the proceeds to invest in other parts of the country that could be deemed as less profitable. So we need to have all these ideas on the table. We can't throw anything out. I'm not saying one is the right versus the other, but we can't sit down and not do anything.
Fantastic.
Like we've been doing for a while.
Excellent stuff. Digital technology.
Yeah.
What a lot of people have been talking about it. A lot of good news coming from Nigeria as in these tech companies and the money they're raising and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
What kind of impact can digital tech have on the power sector?
Yeah. So digital technologies they're enablers.
Right.
It's not a solution in itself.
Okay.
It just helps to improve efficiency. That's what you're doing. You're increasing efficiency, managing what you have better. That's how digital technology comes in, and that's what we do actually.
At Schneider.
At Schneider Electric,
All right.
that's what we do. Now, what that does is that you can better manage your network. You can better manage what you already have, the infrastructure you already have. You can then have sensors where your grid begin to talk to each other, and begin to talk to your control room. So you start creating what we call redundancies on the network. For example, if there is a break on one particular path, you can actually just reroute the power, and then so that ultimately the customers don't suffer.
Right.
So that's where the digital technology comes in. It's really about better decision making, better management. You automate some of these things. This equipment actually they talk to you.
Right.
It's like you begin to tell you, okay, this is my state. I'm overloaded.
Right.
Help me here.
Yes.
We can shift some of the parts to somewhere else. So that's really what they do. It's really better management, better efficiency, and you can run your net or your grid better.
Right.
And again, they talk to you, and they talk to themselves. So
Right.
ultimately, technology is to improve efficiency. It's not the only solution, so to speak.
Fantastic. Only got a few minutes left.
Yeah.
Since we're talking on tech, can you speak to the issue of meters? So I guess that would also, smart meters would be there, and they need to make sure everybody's, meterized so that we can read and end estimated billing.
Absolutely. So it's, there are two sides to it.
Yes.
There is what needs to be done in terms of smart metering.
Yeah.
We need smart meters. We need to be metered. Everybody needs to be metered.
Right.
But I would also say something. Nigerians also need to pay for electricity.
They do.
We need to be, we can't say it's all government,
Right.
it's private sector.
Two-way street.
It's a two-way street.
Right.
If you don't pay for electricity, you're creating two problems. One, you're making the providers unprofitable, and very soon they will tell you we can't continue to run like this.
Right.
The other thing is you're making it more expensive for those that pay, because somebody has to pay for what you use. So ultimately, it's a two-way street. We need to be metered, and the discos have to be held accountable and ensure that everybody gets metered. But when you're metered, please make sure you're not tampering with the meters.
Exactly. The bypassing and all that stuff
so
has
it's
to
a two-way street,
Right.
and we also have responsibilities to each other and to our country to ensure that we all solve this problem together.
Fantastic. I have about a minute or so to go. So finally, do you think your outlook? Do you think we're going to make progress? I don't know, latter half of this year, early next year. What's your outlook? Parting words, if you will.
Yeah. So I see little progress. I see progress being made. I see some very exciting things in the sector, like the Energizing Education program. Where the government is basically ring-fencing some universities and putting power. So there are a few things that are coming up. Some of the IOCs are also trying to invest in power as well. So those are some of the things that excite me and say, okay, fine, we're seeing improvements. TCN as a whole has also improved. A few years ago, the transmission capacity was just 5,500. Now it's at 8,100. So a few improvements.
Every megawatt helps.
Every megawatt helps. But at the end of the day, it's just not fast enough.
Right.
We're a nation of 200 million people. Before we could even say we're anywhere there, we should need to have 50,000 megawatts on the grid. And we need to have at least 75% electrification rate. So we're still not there, but
But we're getting there.
We're getting there,
little by little.
Little by
Just
little.
move faster.
We just need to move faster.
Mr. Ajibola Akindele, who is the general manager at Sub-Saharan Africa. Schneider I'm thinking German. Is it German or it's
French?
It's French. Thank you for clarifying that. It's French company. Excellent stuff. General manager, Sub-Saharan Africa, Schneider Electric Process Automation. Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Thank you, Rogers.
Great conversation on power.